Go ahead and fully explore the Long Keep ruins. There's a ton of resources if you're willing to smash a few pots and crates. You'll get all sorts of things like string, maybe some metal plates or at least some scrap, and plenty of other stuff like wood. I'd actually do this before you even set about making a base or going to the location set on your map. It's quite instinctive in survival games to go ahead and just go and gather up some resources straight away, but this should be your first step. You'll find plenty of little lore notes as well, and these can show you locations on the map to go and explore later. And pay attention to, especially ruins and old houses, for secret little rooms. There's lots of these little hidden little switches or maybe little puzzles that reveal hidden chests. Whether you're stealthy or you're someone that goes straight in there is going to be some abilities that you can buy that really help out in combat. If you want to be stealthy assassin, there is a skill that will allow you to backstab, and likewise there's a skill that helps you stun enemies more. There's so many different skills to activate, and I've got to admit the grind for these is pretty intense. I only unlocked a few of them by the time I'd finished my first 3 or 4 hours. Just definitely get a feel for the game first maybe before deciding which way you want to go, stealthy or maybe invest in a bit of upfront combat. As in the case of most survival games though, you definitely want to invest in stamina, as it get quite annoying running around so much. Don't be too scared of venturing into the Shroud. There's plenty of little pockets of it in the first area that you explore, and it will have, yes, some enemies but also some resources, especially things like these spores. It's all going to come in use later. You've got the timer and you can find these special little flasks that will give you extra time in the Shroud. Until much later you might come across potions that give you the same that you can take whenever you want, or craft some abilities yourself, or even increase your skills to do it. There are different types of Shrouds, so you may need to actually level up your character completely at an altar to be able to go into some of the more tougher ones, but you won't have that in the first few hours, and I do believe it's quite pink compared to the blue hue that you first encounter. And make sure you pick up plenty of this stuff too. You'll need a lot of the Shroud liquid for certain upgrades and apocryphy stuff later. You'll need something called Shroud wood, and I was expecting it to come from some gnarly tree or maybe more of the fungal looking growths, but no, it's just pretty much any wood that's in any of the Shroud. Make sure you chop some of them down too. A lot of the enemies do have specific weaknesses. Some are going to be more weak against blunt, piercing, cutting. It all just depends on the weapon you're using or elemental damage. You're not going to have that much choice in the early days of playing the game, but eventually you will start unlocking new weapons, so it's a good idea to have one of kind of every element at your arsenal. Loot is randomised in chests, so it's definitely still always going to get some, even if you had a few bum wraps and only got some maybe wood or an item or resource. Doesn't like the exception to that is specific places, like if you come across a bandit's stash cave, you kind of will find a worthwhile item usually within these chests. Some locations will be static, so you'd always find exactly the same weapon or item. Other places are a bit random, depending on what level you are. That's roughly the level that you'll get weapon, or maybe slightly higher. So yes, chests do respawn. It might be worth visiting early game areas just to see if there's a weapon that's now got a bit more of a boost, or just go farm a lot of the chests and see if it matches up to your level now. Enshrouded has a free food system. Basically eat 3 different items, whether it be meat, fruit, water or other, and they'll give you different buffs and abilities, and then them abilities will stay with you until you get hungry again. So try not to blindly just eat random bits of food. Make sure you're understanding what they're going to give you, like water helping regenerate your stamina, meat giving you extra health, and berries regenerating your health quicker. You'll be picking up random potions as you explore. If you're wondering when you'll be able to craft them, you do need to go and find the alchemist. Building your base is completely about where you want to build, for convenience to resources, or just have somewhere nice to look at once you've built your manor castle. There is no kind of raid mechanics, and I don't think they're planned, judging by the FAQs the devs have done. That in mind, Soriel really wants you to build a flame altar specifically in the one location first, and even if you do that and then afterwards dismantle it and go somewhere else, it will still keep sending you back to that location for a while. It's not a deal breaker, you can still go ahead and you'll get more missions, but just a little FYI. You will have the ability to build 2 bases, so it's definitely worth setting up one here now, explore and do all the good stuff for the beginning part of the game, and just remember that your second base can be wherever you want it to be, more convenient or prettier. You will unlock more abilities to open up more bases, and that will happen as you progress through the game. If Get used to having the system of exploring during the day and coming back at night to craft items or ramp your base up, as you cannot skip currently to the morning time. Sleeping in the bed will just give you your rested comfort bonus instantly applied. I swear I've come across more enshrouded while exploring during the night, the little blue guys, so if you definitely want to catch up on some of their resources, go for the explore during the night time. Some creatures you only tend to find at certain points of the day as well, so that's always worth bearing in mind, especially things like fireflies that you're going to need for lamps and stuff. I highly recommend you upgrade your armour as quickly as possible. It really will help you out going from just rags to the fur armour set, and then obviously to the fighters set, which you'll get once you've rescued a blacksmith. That's how the game works. If you hadn't realised by now or played it from the demo, that you rescue NPCs and they give you new recipes and unlock new items. Certain things you'll get just by leveling up, but specific recipes for things like potions, as I said earlier, and different weapons and armours, and maybe some crafting, is found by rescuing NPCs that you'll find in Flame Altar temples. The progression of the game is very RPG-like. It literally shows you on the map where each one of these are every time that you go and complete the next part of the mission. You'll be given the location of the carpenter and the hunter, so do check your map to see if you've been stuck or maybe haven't been able to unlock certain things. You do need a ton of animal hides in the first stages to craft some of your armour and a lot of other things, so do make sure you kill as many creatures as you see. Wolves will give you some of the bigger amounts, and their meat is actually really good for cooking. If you really want to, you can even take over the cave that they live in as a base, but do be warned, they do tend to respawn. You'll find sometimes mounds of bones where a wolf is guarding, and you might think that this is something you can actually just get rid of to stop them spawning, but they still will respawn in that area. For sure, always use the environment around you to take out enemies. There's so many red barrels, you'd think I was playing Far Cry in this game, so definitely try and lure enemies close to it so that they get blown up. Even with no enemies around, red barrels can often reveal secret loot too, so if you see suspicious mounds or placed oddly against the wall, blow it up and it will give you, I'm sure, a secret stash of loot. It really won't be too long before you're inundated with lots of weapons and accessories that you probably won't necessarily be using, or doubles. Make sure you dismantle them. These will give you some of the materials needed to go ahead and either respec your character so you can reset your skills, or go ahead and strengthen a lot of your weapons. So yeah, don't leave a big box filled of metal tools or swords that you found. Go ahead and salvage them if you don't really think you're going to be using them, so that you can go ahead and strengthen other stuff. When you salvage something though, be warned, it only works for weapons that you've discovered, not items that you've crafted. You might only get some basic resources back if you do go ahead and get rid of anything you've crafted, but most of the time it will just say delete. If you've managed to get a whole bunch of loot, don't risk it going across the landscape, just teleport. The game teaches you this, but often a bunch of times I forgot. I was just running back home when I could have just simply clicked on the map and teleported back to my home portal. It's kind of too easy in the game. It makes it very cheesable. Even if you exit in and out of the game while you're in the Shroud, it also resets your Shroud timer too. Maybe some of this will be fixed in the future, but I've got a feeling no. So yes, if things are getting too much, just teleport back home. You'll end up crafting a grapple and a glider as part of the early missions, but you will be able to get improvements to these later. I do believe specifically the glider, so don't worry if you're not getting much airtime. Obviously you can also craft different potions to give you a bit more stamina and last a bit longer, but yeah, there will be improvements made to them, I'm sure, in the future. Look out for traps, they are pretty nasty and obviously they can do a lot of damage to you. There's various different styles that will often block enemy places or encampments with bandits. As I said earlier, you find so much lore that reveals places on the map. They really are worth exploring, as it will give you much better chances of possibly finding loot chests. Obviously some of your story and objectives will be there too, and ideally you want to get hold of the NPCs as quick as possible, especially the blacksmith and even more importantly maybe the alchemist, so you can start crafting the potions. Once you're back at base and you've made the summoning item tool, you can place your NPC and then you can obviously get access to everything he sells, specifically the charcoal kiln and the forge. Start using these up straight away and start making some of the resources. You'll get charcoal from the charcoal kiln, dirt obviously, and as you keep playing you'll unlock recipes for tar and wood acid, so you might not actually see much use for this in the early hours, but definitely start cooking up a lot of this stuff ready, because you will start using a lot of it as soon as you start finding more of the NPCs and progressing. And since crafting's on a timer for a lot of this stuff, you definitely want to think ahead. The Shroud is pretty imposing, but don't let it put you off actually progressing a bit quicker than you might imagine. Right now I feel like the game is just way too easy. Even if I was only level 2, I went ahead and took on the boss. Now I had put a fair few hours into the demo, so I knew what to expect. But the quicker you do this, the quicker you'll get more upgrades and more XP. Gaining XP is really important to level up, finding new locations is one of the best ways, and obviously taking out enemies. And as I said, the game's pretty forgiving. You can replenish your Shroud timer at one of the altars right directly before you go on and take on this well, which may or may not have a boss at the bottom of it. There's no way to drop items at the moment. You can go ahead and delete, you can transfer to other boxes, but you can't just drop anything in the world. You can gift items to friends if they're close enough, which is a really great feature. Think carefully that you're not full up. You can't really get over encumbered, but obviously you can fill up your slots too much. If you've been exploring and finding lots of chests, you probably would have hopefully found a legendary weapon, so there's not much need to go ahead and craft a lot of the stuff that the actual blacksmith wants to sell you. You've probably worked out by now that wands are pretty much everlasting, but staves, they do need magic, basically spells or ammo to go ahead and use. So I always like having at least one wand with me, and then the rest of the stuff I kind of tailor to what I'm doing, or at least have one variant type, i.e. a hammer and something sharp like just a regular sword. This tip here, but do make sure you get the felling axe. It's different from the hatchet that you might have picked up straight away. It actually chops trees a lot quicker and more efficiently, rather than you just wailing at something with your actual attacking axe. If you've not been getting much resin drop, make sure you're actually chopping down trees with the golden orange leaves, as these will always drop resin rather than just wood. There's not as many dotted around in the early parts, but you will come across much larger areas with loads of them in as well. When it comes to crafting armour, always craft the chest piece first, then the helmet, then the trousers, as this gives you the highest percentage points in protection or whatever stat it is, and then the usually gloves and boots are the same level. The alchemist will give you the wizard's robe set, and they often use different resources from like the fighter set, so don't be too scared about crafting all the armors, just give you a bit of extra protection until you get to that next NPC with new gear. You can take over ruins that you've discovered and literally make them your base, destroying the walls. Just make sure you use the square function to go ahead and get rid of anything if you're expanding. We found this old manor house and we made it our second base home. It can be quite tedious, but do make sure when you're directed towards the big massive tower that you are destroying every crate that you find on the balconies and in all the rooms and corridors. Honestly, in the early days it's a great way to stock up on lots of different potions and resources that you'll need. And don't attempt to tackle this place until you have got the grapple hook, as you won't get very far. Once you've discovered and unlocked it and gone through, you can use it as a fast travel point from the very top, and that helps you glide across the different areas for you to explore much easier. And that is pretty much it today. Normally I do guides and I tend to show quite a lot of the game within them guides, but hopefully this has been a true beginner's guide, giving you just a few heads up and clues, hopefully not waste too much time in the beginning stages. Like I said, the game isn't particularly hard, everything's kind of signposted and put on the map, but certainly some of them things I wish I kind of knew a little bit earlier. I'm going to have much more detailed advanced guides, particularly for the bosses and some of the new regions that have been unlocked. Obviously now it's a full game instead of a demo, so do make sure you're subscribed as always, and I'll see you ratbags later.